Hashtag Silksong is real. Yes, by far the biggest game of the entirety of Gamescom was and is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Hollow Knight Silksong. It's the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam of all time, and it's of course the sequel to Hollow Knight, one of the most acclaimed games ever made, which has sold nearly 15 million copies. And all of this makes me inordinately happy to hear, because for those of you who don't know, because you've somehow been living under a rock, Hollow Knight is not a huge AAA game with a $100 million budget, a team of thousands, a major publisher promoting it with billboards and McDonald's Happy Meal campaigns. It's not showing off the very latest bleeding-edge 3D graphics technology and requiring a $2,000 GPU to run it properly. Heck, it's not even a full-priced game with $150 deluxe edition, season passes, microtransactions, loot boxes, and pay-to-win mechanics. It's a small indie game made by a tiny team starting with just 2 devs. It's a 2D Metroidvania with a retro style. And that makes me happy, for the vast majority of games that I play nowadays are retro-style indie games made by solo devs or small teams, passion projects. Many of my favourite games of all time are Metroidvanias. And if you've been living under a slightly smaller rock, as I often mention on my channel, I too am an indie dev who makes both solo projects and ones with small teams, less than 5 people. True passion projects, one of which is a Metroidvania as well. And while it's extremely different to Hollow Knight, it's truly inspiring what an incredible game Team Cherry made, and how it became such a huge success simply through being of such incredibly high quality and spreading through word of mouth. Nowadays, gamers seem to be getting more and more fed up of AAA slop games with enormous bloated budgets but no new ideas, and the distinct feeling that while many of the smaller artists, programmers and others working on the project individually obviously are hugely talented and passionate, the big producers and studio heads at the top are prioritizing cutting costs, milking whales, and increasing shareholder value rather than making anything approaching art, or even caring about what's fun, to be honest. If you ask any solo indie dev to name their top 10 most inspiring games, every single one is placing Hollow Knight in there somewhere. Of course, such a successful and beloved game had fans crying out for more. Sure, we got some expansions over time and they were great, but when a true sequel was announced, the world stood still. Hollow Knight Silksong. Hell, you don't even have to say the first part. Silksong. It's so infamous that every gamer knows that this is Hollow Knight 2 by any other name, and every gamer wants to play this. It's been 6 years since Silksong was first announced, and gamers have never given up hope. At every games reveal event since that day, the comment sections are just calling out for it, trying to manifest this show to be the one where they finally get a reveal. In a Gamescom event with over 120 games on the show floor, over 5 days of reveals and showcases, including the latest $100 million franchises like Call of Duty, it's a 2D side-scrolling, hand-drawn indie game from a small team that has dominated the show, with people queuing for hours to play for just a few minutes, and it has garnered more press coverage than every other game combined. And despite the huge blockbuster-style trailers with marketing campaigns to match, a simple gameplay-heavy video won the Best Trailer Gamescom Award, as voted for by the community. The gamers have spoken. And this is great for Nintendo too, for this is the Daily Switch 2 podcast after all, because while of course this is a multi-plat game coming to pretty much everything, it was Nintendo of Europe SE who represented and promoted it at the show. You do have to pay to be at these events. Right there, getting equal billing alongside Mario Kart, Mario Party, Donkey Kong, Pokemon ZA. Nintendo chose to pay to promote just 5 of the biggest third-party games for the Switch 2 also. Cyberpunk 2077, Borderlands 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Elden frickin' Ring, and Hollow Knight Silksong. Take a step back for a second and think how crazy it is that a 2D Metroidvania from a team with just a handful of people is considered in the same group as all of those, let alone the fact that it actually gained more attention than all of them combined, including Nintendo's own games at their own booths. And so here we are. I've still got so much to cover from the show, including a full episode for Kirby's Air Riders, another breaking down all the Pokemon revelations of the last week at Gamescom and the Pokemon World Championships. I need to make a whole episode covering the results of those aforementioned Gamescom Awards too. Spoiler alert, Nintendo has gone from getting basically 0 nominations in previous years to absolutely sweeping the board this year. Incredible stuff. You love to see it. That alone should be the number one news for me to cover, but nope, sorry, everything stops for Silksong. And for those that don't know, I covered the game a little bit in my breakdown of the opening night live event, where they dropped a very, very short teaser trailer. I'll insert that clip into this episode so you can hear my off-the-cuff thoughts and live reactions, and I talked for about 10 minutes or so about what I thought, my hopes and predictions for the full reveal. Don't worry, if you've already heard them, like always on this channel, there will be timestamps in the description and pinned comment if you want to skip it, but I think it definitely makes sense to include it here for context for all those new people, hi new friends, who will be discovering this video because they're searching for more Silksong information and reactions. After that, we will cover everything new about Silksong from the whole show. The reactions from those on the show floor, the first impressions from several major games journalists and outlets after playing. Then I'll give my genuine live reaction to the full trailer. Then I'll read and react to the interview with Team Cherry from Jason Schreier for Bloomberg. That's a paywalled article, by the way, so I know that many of you won't have been able to access it. For those that don't know, in my day job, I work in the film industry, so I have a subscription, and I figure we can go through it together. Hopefully, I won't get sued because I'll be reacting to the article and giving my thoughts, so that counts as fair use, right? Yeah, so that's the rough plan. This is mostly unscripted other than some notes I've made in planning, and this will probably be quite a long one and a lot of work for me to edit and especially to upload on my temporary internet connection as I build our new film studio in the French countryside. Leave me a comment to let me know that you appreciate these Herculean efforts, and importantly, let me know your thoughts and opinions on Hollow Knight Silksong. I'm going to quickly read the podcast intro, but if you're going to skip it, no worries. Just remember to drop a like and subscribe while you're doing so. Incredibly, during this Gamescom event, we've gained a bunch more new friends in our little gaming club. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for helping me pass my first 1,000 subscribers. Woo! Once this is all over and I have time, we're going to have a really fun celebration-style episode with a ton of cool surprises and some exclusive, world-exclusive announcements. Right, super quick intro read, then it's Silksong all the way, baby. Let's go! Hi, everyone. Welcome to Daily Switch 2, a podcast covering everything related to the Nintendo Switch 2, with at least one new episode or video uploaded per day to YouTube, Spotify, and your favorite major platforms. My name is Sam. I've been a gamer since the 1980s. I've worked in the entertainment industry since I was a teenager, including as a games journalist, producer of gaming documentaries and shows, and I'm even programming multiple indie video games, including 4, which will be released on the Switch and hopefully Switch 2. So be sure to subscribe and follow the show for the world exclusive news on those as they drop. However, I'm a gamer and Nintendo fan at heart, and this podcast is purely a passion project for me to talk about all the stuff that interests and excites me about this new system. It is not monetized or funded by any entity. It's completely unofficial and unbiased so that I can give my full, frank, honest opinions. So if you want to support me or just find out about the best places to get these free daily episodes, or to join our free members area where you can talk to me and leave suggestions and take part in monthly free giveaways to win official Nintendo prizes, all links are in the bio and at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Daily Switch 2. Thank you so much, and back to the episode. Okay then, first, it makes sense to include the clip from the opening night live. Firstly, where I talked about the game and my opinions about both Hollow Knight and obviously the forthcoming Silksong, reacted to the teaser trailer, my live reaction, and then talked about it afterwards and what I'm hoping for in the full reveal. As I said, if you've already heard this in the previous episode, there is a timestamp for those that want to skip ahead a few minutes to the new content and the trailer, etc. Okay, roll VT, over to you, Sam in the past. The next thing was Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong. Right. How many times in my previous episodes when I'm reacting to like a live event, like the Indie World, like the Partner Direct, etc., have I made jokes about, oh, are we going to get Silksong? Are we going to get Silksong? It's basically a meme, isn't it? Or it has been a meme up until this point of like, everybody is always saying, oh, we want Silksong, and then it never comes. Well, Gamescom, we finally got Silksong, haven't we? Obviously, Silksong is coming to the Switch 1 and 2. Well, maybe not, obviously. Thankfully, there is a dedicated Switch 2 version as well as Switch 1. And it's coming in 2025. And at the time of recording this, we don't know the release date. But probably by the time it goes live, we will know the release date. Because we know that there is going to be an announcement and a trailer and everything else during Gamescom. So at the time that I'm recording this, that information isn't there, but as I mentioned before, I will be doing a full Silksong episode after all of that information comes out. But yes, at this point in time on opening night live, we have been given one small teaser trailer, I believe, so let's watch that and react to that, and then I'll do a full episode where I do the full breakdown after the more information comes out. But let's react to the teaser trailer and see what morsels Jeff Keighley wants to give to us about Hollow Knight Silksong. Can you believe that it's finally here?
For 6 years, Team Cherry.
Okay, Jeff, what have you got for me, Jeffrey?
It is highly anticipated and Steam's most wishlisted
6
game.
years
Well, tonight,
and Steam's
I can
most
finally
wishlisted
definitively
game.
tell you that
Incredible.
Silksong is 100% actually launching this year.
Press X to doubt.
And behind me,
Press X to
you're
doubt.
seeing some brand new
Ooh,
Silksong
gameplay footage.
gameplay. The first extended
That does look
look
nice, doesn't
since
it?
the last trailer in 2022. And starting tomorrow, you guys here at Gamescom can play a demo.
See, this
at
is
the
what I mean
Nintendo and
about
Xbox
hand-drawn
booths.
animation, but with a different style for the backgrounds. It's just
There you
so separated,
go.
isn't it?
Silksong is real.
Yes. Silksong is real. Hashtag Silksong is real.
And on
Yep,
Thursday,
looks
Team
great.
Cherry is going to be sharing some news as part of a
Thursday.
YouTube premiere on their channel, so make sure to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be checking that out. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Right. Yeah. No. Again. I don't want to harp on about it too much because because I'll sound like I'm crapping on Absalom. I'm not crapping on Absalom. I think it looks fantastic. But what I was trying to describe in when I was talking about the art style of Absalom was for me the background art, while it's really, really beautiful, it looks too similar to the foreground art. And if you're going to go for a high-res vector art style for a 2D game, in my opinion, the best way to do it is to almost recreate the style of a cell-drawn animation, hand-drawn cell animation, like a cartoon from the olden days, whereby you have hand-painted cells for the main characters with acrylic paint, and then more like a watercolor background or something for the cells to go on top of, so that there is that definite separation. And yeah, that Silksong footage, my god, that looked beautiful. That looked beautiful. Now, I have mentioned many times that for Metroidvanias, I do personally prefer a pixel art style, as long as it's, well drawn and well done, because to me, maybe because the first ones that I experienced were obviously being Metroidvania, were Metroid and Castlevania games back in the day, but yeah, for me the pixel art style really suits it. But obviously there have been some fantastic Metroidvanias with a modern art style, and Hollow Knight obviously is absolutely up there with the best best in class. It's one of the best reviewed indie games of all time. Incredible. And I've talked many times on this channel about how passionate I am about small teams and solo devs and passion projects for true indies, just making what they love because they love it and they just have an idea and it's their artistic expression. They're not making something because they think it's going to be profitable. They're not making something because, you know, some corporate suit told them to make it. They're just making exactly what they want to make. And Hollow Knight, I remember when it first came out and I first saw it, I looked at the character and I thought, well, that's a bit weird looking. That's not particularly appealing, and that's not, you know, it wasn't like an obvious marketable thing. And actually, I didn't play it for a while because I was just like, I don't know, it doesn't really look for me. There's plenty of Metroidvanias out there and I don't know. But then it was getting such good reviews and everybody was just talking about how it was amazing and the word of mouth, and everybody was saying to me, have you played Hollow Knight? Have you played Hollow Knight? And I was like, no, it didn't look that appealing to me. And they're like, oh, you've got to play it. It's like the best Metroidvania game ever. And yeah, when I finally got round to playing it, it's incredible, obviously, and the art style did absolutely win me over, and the character did win me over, and the world did win me over. It's so unique, it's so different, and this, in a way, this is what I love. I'm always talking about how, I mean, I'm an indie dev myself, so I'm biased, and you know, I like to think that I'm an artist myself. I like to think that I'm making something because it's what I want to make and because I had an idea and I'm doing something unique. So I love it when other people do as well. And even if somebody's making something that is not to my style or not what I would have made it, you know, great, good for them, as long as they're making what they want to make. But Hollow Knight, obviously, it's a great game. Obviously, they announced a sequel. They announced a sequel probably too early. Because it's created this meme of everybody saying like, oh, it's never going to come out. It's become a bit like, I mean, for my generation, it was Duke Nukem Forever. Obviously, you had the 2D Duke Nukem games, which some of us knew about, but Duke Nukem 3D, when that came out, that game was an absolute phenomenon. It was one of the most popular games. And then they announced, oh, we're making a sequel. It's going to be called Duke Nukem Forever, and it's going to have the latest high-tech this and that. And it was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed to the point that it became a meme. It was, I think, if I remember correctly, it was well over a decade that it was delayed for. And that game was restarted multiple times because they kept wanting to switch to different engines, because every time a new game engine would come out, they go, oh, now we want to remake it in that new game engine so it looks even better. And basically, it got to the point where the joke was, oh, the game is never going to come out. And eventually it did, and inevitably people were disappointed because, you know, once you've been waiting that much and once you've been hyped up that much, can a game live up to expectations? But with Team Cherry and with Hollow Knight 2, Silksong, I think it might. I think it might live up to expectations, you know, because, well, it hasn't been quite as long. I know people meme about it, but it's 6 years. And when you have a small team led by just one very passionate individual, you know, who is making what they want to make, and it's their artistic vision. And let's face it, Hollow Knight must have made them enough money that if they're smart, they never need to make another game again. They could live for the rest of their life off of this money. It's a bit like Notch with Minecraft. He doesn't need to make Minecraft 2, does he? I mean, he can. Notch often talks about, he's got ideas for games and things, but he doesn't need to ever release another game again. He could just live off that, right? And it's a bit like, you know, Valve with... Yeah, everybody wants them to release Half-Life 3, but why do they need to? Steam is an infinite money machine for them, you know? But with Silksong, for me, I'm guessing that the reason why it's been delayed so many times is not because there's been problems, but just because they don't need to release it. They're in no hurry to release it. They're not going to be hemorrhaging, you know, money, you know, desperately needing money to keep them afloat. No, this is a comparatively cheap game to produce from a small team. It's not a huge budget thing, and they can wait until they're 100% happy with it. And I'm sure, I know myself as a game dev that when you are making games, even if you try and make something that you think is going to be simple, as you're producing it, you get more and more and more ideas. I talked about this before in my Pac-Man episode, that because I'm producing a Metroidvania of my own, so again, I'm biased to some extent. And I got a certain way into development of that Metroidvania, and I realized, oh, okay, I want this game to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect if I rush it. It's probably going to take a few years to get this 100% how I want it to be. And as a passionate indie dev, it's not a solo project, my Metroidvania. It's a collaboration with one other person. So it's two of us, a two-man team making our Metroidvania. And basically it's me who does all the programming and the majority of the art. But with a very, very good long-term friend of mine, we created the character and the worlds and the magic system, and she is doing voice acting and doing some art. And yeah, it's a real cool kind of co-collaboration project. Once we realized, okay, this game isn't going to come out anytime soon, I thought, okay, well, let's make a simpler game that I can release first to kind of test the waters and get back out there, because some of you will know I used to be in game dev many, many years ago. I literally started in the 80s. And then I got out of the industry for a long time for various reasons that I've covered before. Not enough time to cover it here. But in order to kind of slowly get back into it and learn the process of releasing on Steam and releasing on modern consoles, I thought, well, it would be a good idea to release a simpler game first that I can produce very quickly. And I tried to come up with a cool idea of something that I could put out simply. And I started thinking about Pac-Man, and I came up with an idea that was basically a riff on Pac-Man, but with a completely unique setting, completely unique characters, and some story elements. And I went, yeah, let's do that, but it'll be a Pac-Man style game. It'll be very, very quick, very, very easy, very, very simple to make an arcade style game like that. And I can just release it digitally for like $2.99, and that'll be my easy, quick way into getting into the industry again. And then that gives me time to keep working on my Metroidvania. No, that's not the way that game dev works, or certainly not for me anyway, and I know not for many artists as well, because you start trying to make something simple, and you start to, but because you're passionate about it, and because it's cool, and because you're enjoying it, as you're developing it, and as you're making the art, and as you're making the levels, and as you're making the game modes, and as you start playing with the game logic, you start thinking of, oh, I could add this other mode. I could add this other play style. Oh, what if I added this other environment? What if I add, and you get more and more and more ideas. It's called feature creep. And you get more and more and more ideas of how to make it even cooler and even bigger and even better. And I bet you bottom dollar that is exactly what's happened with Silksong. They didn't, the easy thing would have just been to release basically what was DLC for Hollow Knight and just another environment, basically the same game but with another environment, and it would have been like the equivalent of expansion packs, back in the day, or like, to use another Knight game as an example, similar to what they did with Shovel Knight. And that's not to insult Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is an absolutely fantastic game. But all the DLC for that is a very sensible progression on Shovel Knight. It's not reinventing the wheel. Yeah, you got new characters and new moves, and everything is new. It's fantastic content. But it's not like a full-on sequel. It's like more of the same, but with some different ideas. And that's essentially what Silksong could have been. And they could have probably released it 6 months after the first game came out, and they could have made a ton of money, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted to make a full-on sequel with new ideas. I bet you the reason why it's been delayed so long is because Team Cherry are such perfectionists that is why it's been delayed, not because of any technical problems, not because of any legal wrangling, not because of any money issues. No, I bet you they just didn't want to release it until they were sure that it was perfect, and they were happy with it, and they were happy putting their name on it, and happy that it is a worthy follow-up. So the fact that it's been delayed, but now they feel comfortable saying, yeah, it's definitely coming out, I'm so excited for it. And because I just know that it's going to be a quality product. But yeah, as Jeff said, in a couple of days after the day that I'm recording this, we will get more information, and I'm sure we're going to learn everything, and I'm sure that Team Cherry are going to come out and explain to us exactly why. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe there have been all kinds of technical problems, maybe there have been legal issues and reasons why they couldn't release until now, maybe there's been some really tragic personal life stuff going on in the background that we didn't know about. I truly obviously hope that isn't true, but we don't know. And I don't know at the time of recording, but I would bet your bottom dollar, bet my bottom dollar that actually we're going to hear, no, we just wanted to wait until we were 100% sure, and we kept getting ideas for cool shit, and we thought, well, why not sit back and add the cool shit to the game, And this is what is so cool, because it means that in my opinion, it's likely that Silksong is just going to be so much more than just, okay, it's Hollow Knight, but it's more of the same. It's like Hollow Knight, but in a different setting or whatever, It's going to be so much more. I haven't got too much to say about the gameplay footage that I saw just then. Yeah, it looked fantastic. The graphics looked nice. I could see an upgrade there. The movement mechanics and combat mechanics look great. But yeah, it's nothing that I wasn't expecting. Don't forget that we have had a gameplay demo before. Seems like years ago now. I can't remember when it was, but there was gameplay demos before that were... Have those been made public? I don't know if those were made public or if they were just at industry events. But anyway, yes, I have seen gameplay footage before, and many other people have. Yeah. Looks great. But come back to me in a couple of days, and obviously I'm going to record a whole special where obviously I do my full reaction to that. For this episode, that's all I've got to talk about. Tier, does it even need to be said as far as a tier list? Yes, obviously this is S tier. Obviously this is an S tier announcement, even though we only saw like a few seconds of footage. Just the fact that we now know we're going to get a release date. It's going to be coming this year, and we're going to be getting even more information. S tier announcement, and the announcement will be during Gamescom, so even if it wasn't S tier, it will become an S tier by the time we get more information. I can't remember it. I can't imagine that any of the stuff that we get in the new information will take my buzz away and make me go, oh, I'm not interested anymore, unless they turn around and say, oh, we've decided to turn it into a roguelite graphic novel with idle gameplay, then I wouldn't be interested. Well, no, I probably would, actually, being that it's Team Cherry and they're known for such quality. But no. I can't imagine there's going to be anything else that's going to put me off. So yes, S tier, obviously, right. But moving on. Okay, so as Gamescom continued, I guess the very first thing to cover is the demo that was available for people to play on the show floor. As I said, there were consistent, massive queues which never went away, and many people have reported that many other major games were easy to just walk right up and play or speak to someone. Even if you got there early each day, just as it opened and ran, there would be a queue for Silksong. The way people talk about it reminds me of when you go to a Disney theme park and there's a new ride which has huge lines, so everybody gets up early in the morning, so they're the first in line for when the park opens, and as soon as the gates open they run to that specific ride. But the problem is everyone else gets their same idea, so you end up queuing anyway. No joke, I was once in Florida for a 3-week holiday, 21 days, and there was one ride that I tried and failed to get on every single one of those 21 days, and a show that kept being full to capacity no matter how early I got there. Nightmare, especially when you're paying thousands per day. Anyway, again, that level of hysteria at a show that is mostly about AAA 100 million budget games, over 120 of them on the show floor, and it's a game like Silksong that's being the main thing people are clamoring for, is just crazy. This is generational kind of stuff, especially for an indie game, frankly. The demos themselves, there were 2 to choose from. On the one hand, they are awesome. I know this because I've played them. But on the other hand, they're not new, and that is why I've played them. You might have guessed by the way that I'm talking that I didn't go to Germany for this particular Gamescom. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing online and the few people that I know who are there. I've spoken to a couple of them, and I'm going by what I'm being told. But Yeah, these demos aren't new. I mentioned in my earlier comments that I and some others have played these exact demos before, what seems like ages ago. That's not a bad thing at all, though. What that means is that back when they were previously shown off, those parts of the game were already 100% finished and they were confident in them. And even all this time later, they still feel that they are perfect and represent the game as a whole well. This is the opposite of Duke Nukem Forever, when every new screenshot or build was completely different and they kept restarting in a different engine. Same for the ill-fated Sonic Extreme, RIP. I waited so long for that game. It's the reason that I bought a 32X, and then the reason that I bought a Saturn. Sigh. Oh well, both systems did have some kick-ass games anyway, so I'm not really complaining, but I digress. These two demos being ones already shown to journalists, what that says to me is Team Cherry are confident that they got it right first time and have been spending the rest of the time between then and now expanding and polishing other areas of the game while using the same engine, same controls, same main sprite graphics, etc. I did see one person disappointed that it was the same demo that they'd played before, but to me, it's actually a very good sign of both confidence and quality in the product. Too often in this industry, 100% of the effort goes into making an incredible demo, first level or tutorial with all kinds of cool stuff going on, and everyone who previews it is wowed, but when the final game comes out, it's clear that like 90% of the budget and development time went into polishing up just that single area to create a good impression, and the rest of the game is kind of rushed or filler. It's a bit like a movie that puts all the best shots and lines in the trailer, so it looks awesome, but when you watch the whole film, everything in between sucks and is just padding the runtime to get to a contracted number of minutes. Can you tell that I've spent a large portion of my career working in the low-budget, straight-to-DVD or straight-to-streaming movie industry? My gut feeling is that it's the exact opposite of what is happening here, and they don't want to give away too much in the previews and trailers. They just want to show, yep, the game exists, it looks good, it runs smoothly, it controls well, and just whet your appetite to want to play the whole thing. It's just that I've been wanting to play the whole thing since I played that demo ages ago. But that's the main thing that I wanted to know, though. As a predominantly Switch 2 player, and certainly the presenter, owner, and producer of a Switch 2 related channel, does the game look good and run well on the Switch 2? And yes is the simple answer. I've seen and heard countless people describe it in handheld mode as buttery smooth, and if you play it docked, it even has the option to turn on 120 FPS mode if your TV supports 120 Hz, though apparently it does lower the resolution, which is fair enough. That's what happens in pretty much all console-based 120 FPS modes, or even 60 FPS modes sometimes. It's like, do you remember when the PS5 launched with Spider-Man and you could choose a quality mode or a performance mode? It's like that. By the way, as far as 120 FPS games go, while the capacity to support them is something that Nintendo mentioned a lot in promoting the Switch 2 because it makes it sound powerful, so far they are few and far between. Other than Silksong, I only know of 3 more so far. First up is Handy Hockey, a very basic but fun mouse mode air hockey minigame. It's download only. Weirdly, a modern remake of a DSi-only title that was previously Japan exclusive. Presumably it used the touchscreen instead of the mouse. I don't know. I never played it. It was Japan only and download only. The Switch 2 version did come out on the 31st of July, so it's out already. I did buy it to review, but it's extremely bare bones, so I didn't really think it was a substantial enough experience to warrant its own episode. So it's waiting until I make my next roundup where I cover like 20 games in one video. But it is only $7. So if that sounds fun and you want to test out the 120 FPS mode of your TV, 120 Hz TV, maybe give it a try. Or, even better, you can try the next game for free, as there is a demo out right now. It's Mina the Hollower. I love Mina the Hollower. I mentioned Shovel Knight earlier, another mega successful indie game that has inspired me a huge amount in my own indie dev career, which has Knight in the title, just like Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight even got his own amiibo, didn't he? Anyway, the same team, Yacht Club Games, great bunch of people. They're trying their hand at a top-down Zelda game with a Game Boy Color style, like Link's Awakening DX or the Capcom games, Story of Seasons, Story of Ages, and it's absolutely lovely. It was in the Indie World Direct, so you can see my reaction to it there, but it's absolutely a game that I will be covering in a lot of detail in the future, including a full review, because, oh my goodness, it's great. Next up, I should probably mention that there is also 120 FPS content in Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, including a little kind of demo where it says, you know, can you tell the difference between 30, 60, and 120 frames? But frankly, I can't possibly recommend that you spend $10 on the Switch 2 Welcome Tour now, can I? It should have been free, and even though it's a kind of fun experience over in less than an hour, but, you know, it's kind of fun and kind of polished, but I can't possibly recommend that you spend $10 on that because it should have been free, and we don't want to encourage Nintendo to keep making these anti-consumer decisions. It's just, frankly, it's disgusting, so I bought it so you don't have to. Right, so you might now be thinking, well, if that's the three other 120 FPS games mentioned, you might notice that along with Silksong, they're all comparatively simple games. I mean, in the case of Switch 2 Welcome Tour and Handy Arky, yeah, they're almost non-existent games. And you might think that would imply that 120 FPS mode isn't really possible for more intensive system taxing games, which somewhat takes the point away, doesn't it? People on PC who care about insanely high frame rates mostly do it because they think that it gives them the edge in the latest 3D FPS games to have faster reaction times or something. And that's obviously not possible on the weak-ass Switch 2, is it? But wait, what do we always say on this channel? Welcome Tour isn't a game. That's right. So, what's the third game to support 120 FPS? Metroid Prime 4. A graphically intensive 3D FPS. Interesting. For me personally, while I can just about tell the difference between 60 and 120, I can massively tell the difference between 30 and 60. That's the biggest difference to me, and if a game runs at a perfect 60 locked, I am very happy. However, I'm a retro gamer. There are plenty of older 3D games that I still happily play to this day that run at 20 frames per second, sometimes 15 or even less. I can adjust to pretty much anything, but for me, the most important thing is consistency. If a game's frame rate keeps changing, keeps going up and down, that is the biggest issue and makes it difficult to play for me, because you can never fully rely on how the controls will respond, and it's hard on your eyes too. So for me, this is the reason that I found I didn't want to play the Gen 9 Pokemon games on Switch 1, and even found my beloved Link's Awakening, when it was remade, a bit of a chore. But those games run so much smoother on the Switch 2, and suddenly it's a joy to play them. It's like discovering a whole new game, and suddenly these games that I spent money on but didn't really want to play, suddenly I do want to play them, which is great. Although I did hear one of the commenters on my channel left a comment saying that, yeah, the Pokemon games are much better, but being that they are predominantly Pokemon players, it did make the Switch 2 feel a bit like $500 DLC for their previously purchased Pokemon games, and I can totally see that. But either way, games which ran terribly before now run really nicely on Switch 2, and for me, one of the best things about Switch 2 is these games that I've previously bought now just play so much better. So being that Silksong seems to be a rock-solid 60 FPS on Switch 2 anyway, I'm not sure that I'll personally use the 120 FPS mode, so I don't really care about it from a usage perspective, but I do care about it because the fact that it's included is a very good sign that there is a lot of leeway programming resource-wise. So it's unlikely that the game will have any trouble with dropped frames, VFR, or slowdown, etc. It's just there shouldn't be need for it. I mean, it's a 2D side-scrolling game. You really wouldn't expect it to, but it does have nice high-res art, multiple layers, and what looks like lots of neat lighting, shadowing, atmospheric effects, shaders, etc. going on. So it is nice to have it confirmed that it's pretty much locked at 60 FPS and there shouldn't be an issue. I would imagine that it will also run well on the Switch 1, probably still at 60 FPS, but just at a lower resolution. Maybe it will be a locked 30 instead if it can mostly get 60, but sometimes lost frames. I don't know. I'd imagine that Team Cherry would rather lose some resolution to target a locked 60. But if it's not possible, I imagine they would rather a locked 30 than a variable between, say, 40 and 60. It remains to be seen, though. The Switch 1 version wasn't being shown off on the show floor, or even really being mentioned at all. Being that it was Nintendo that sponsored the booth for the game, I'm sure that they want as many people as possible to think of Silksong as a Switch 2 title first and foremost, and see it running exactly as well as the PS5, Xbox Series or PC versions, to give the best possible first impression of the Switch 2. And a good first impression it did seem to give. Shout out to Nintendo Life again. I'm cheating a little bit by picking quotes that they compiled in an article here. They're all very positive. Let's read some of them and I'll give my spin on what's said. So Nintendo Life themselves summarized by saying, I think you'll all love it if you do like Hollow Knight. They've absolutely smashed it here. It runs beautifully. The atmosphere, the graphics, it all plays totally perfect together. Yeah, nothing that surprises me there. It's interesting that even in their single line summary, they've specified if you do like Hollow Knight. Yeah, I guess that is a valid thing to say here. Not everybody likes Hollow Knight. I know I've been completely effusive in my praise of it. And I've pointed out that it is one of the best reviewed games of all time, and therefore the sequel is literally the most wishlisted game on Steam of all time. There will be people that don't like Hollow Knight and won't get on with it. I mean, some people, maybe the not the art style, because the art style is beautiful, but maybe the kind of darker, more foreboding graphic style won't appeal to them. They might prefer something a bit cuter or a bit more colourful, maybe. But I imagine the biggest issue will be a skill issue, because Hollow Knight is a difficult game. It is a difficult game, but it's one of those games that the more you play it, the better you get at it. And what seems like impossible or even unfair to begin with, actually, the better you get, the more you realize, oh no, it was me. And it's very rewarding. It's a bit like, the Dark Souls games. To begin with, they seem impossible, but you keep coming back, and eventually you master it and you realize, oh no, this section that I thought was impossible before is now really easy, because I've mastered it. And also, I mentioned this in my Drag X Drive review as well, like some of the challenges in that game. The first time you try them, you think, oh, this is way too hard, so you give up on them, and then you go and play a few games, but then maybe you get bored or there's nobody in the lobby, so you come back and you try the challenges again, and the challenges that you found impossible to begin with, suddenly you can play them, because by playing the game, you've got better over time, and that's very satisfying, and to me that's good game design. But yeah, interesting that they have specified you will love it if you do like Hollow Knight. So yeah, if you love Hollow Knight, you're going to love Hollow Knight Silksong. But if you didn't like Hollow Knight, maybe you're not going to like Hollow Knight Silksong. That is valid. That is a valid point. But most people, I would say, well, maybe not most people, because okay, a lot of like mainstream gamers don't play Metroidvanias, but most people who love Metroidvanias Hollow Knight is one of the absolute best ones. I can imagine the only things that would put you off are if you find it too hard, or if you don't like the slightly dark aesthetic. Maybe then, not to plug, but maybe then you'll like the Metroidvania game that I'm personally making, because it does have a more kind of bright, positive, cartoony aesthetic, and we have worked very, very, very hard. I think probably our maybe the most unique part of our game is it has a completely scaling difficulty level and accessibility features. If it's the first Metroidvania game you've ever played, if it's the first 2D platform game that you've ever played, you will find a way that you can play it and enjoy it and get to experience the story. Or if you have accessibility issues, you will find ways that you can play it from start to finish. But if you are a hardcore platformer who loves things like Celeste or Super Meat Boy, you can ramp the difficulty way up. You can turn off all the features that help you along the way, and you can just make it as brutally pixel perfect, accurate jumping as possible. And also you can choose which extra moves to learn, or which it's got a skill tree of things that you can upgrade. So maybe if some of the precise jumping is too difficult for you, you can choose to upgrade your skill tree so you actually jump a bit further, jump a bit higher, or you can turn on double or triple jumping. But if you want to be brutally difficult with your platform challenges, just don't upgrade those skill trees, don't do those extra moves, and try and do it how we initially designed it, with only single jumping at an exact pixel perfect fixed ratio. Can you complete the game like that? Of course, you don't have to, but if you do, the game notices, and you will unlock a small cosmetic reward to say, well done, you've done it. So for those people who want a hardcore challenge, they've got it. But for, kids or people with differing abilities or whatever, different needs, you'll be able to experience it and enjoy the story and see all the game has to offer as well. Anyway, I'm not really wanting to plug myself there, but yeah, it's interesting that Nintendo Life have specified if you do like Hollow Knight. Because my first thought on reading that was, well, why wouldn't somebody like Hollow Knight? And I guess, those are the two main reasons I can see why somebody wouldn't like it. And maybe if you don't like Hollow Knight because of that reason, maybe my own Metroidvania will be a game that will slowly ease you into the genre. And then once you've learnt that you love the genre, you'll have a bit more patience for trying it out. You'll get a bit better, you'll up the difficulty level, and then maybe you can come back to Hollow Knight later once you've got a bit more experienced in 2D platforming and once you're a bit more comfortable. So yeah, maybe my game will help sell a few more copies of Hollow Knight and Hollow Knight Silksong. Like they need my help. Goodness me. Okay, what else do we have? Games Radar. Games Radar says, Silksong is building smartly on exceptionally solid foundations and is doing so with a greater focus on aggression, decisive action, and proactive decision making. Oh wow, okay, that is, that sounds great to me. But again, it does ramp up. It sounds like it's going to be more difficult than the original. It's going to be for people who've already played the original and are good at it and want a challenge. But yeah, building smartly on exceptionally solid foundations is right. But building on them with a greater focus on aggression, decisive action, proactive decision making. That says to me that the combat is maybe going to be more complicated, but also more reactive. So the enemies are going to be smarter or more varied, and you're not just going to brute force them. You're going to have to deal with them in specific ways. That's what that says to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. PC Games N. Not heard of that. Don't know where the N comes from. But okay, quote. Hollow Knight Silksong feels exactly like we hoped it would. Beautiful yet brutal. Is that? Yep, okay. That confirms what I've just said. Charming yet challenging. It doesn't seem like a massive departure from the original, but with a few tweaks and rebalanced techniques, it still freshens up the formula. Yep, sounds good to me. Sounds really good to me. Also sounds like what I was expecting. As I said in my early musings, I don't expect that this game is going to massively change things up and suddenly change the genre or add too many features. I imagine this is basically going to be an extension of the original Hollow Knight, of like, okay, if you like the original Hollow Knight, here's more of that, but expanded and better, but also, by the sound of it, tougher. So yeah, this may, I'm getting the feeling that maybe in my own personal review of this game, I might turn around and recommend, if you haven't already played Hollow Knight, maybe play Hollow Knight first and then play Silksong after. I don't know, but that's the impression that I'm getting. But yeah, for the 15 million people, literally 15 million people who have bought and played Hollow Knight, loved it and want more, yeah, sounds like Silksong is going to be an absolute dream. Eurogamer, good guys at Eurogamer. I met a few people from Eurogamer over the years. I like them. Silksong is the game of the moment. Yeah, you can say that again. Silksong is the game of the moment. And Team Cherry has opted to make this more difficult and a bit more awkward. Awkward is an interesting choice of word there. For platforming fans like me, that's catnip. Yes, absolutely. That's what I just said for myself. But will the average player curious in the franchise be so intrigued? Right, so that's interesting because of what I said about my own game. That was essentially, as I said, one thing that we have been very concerned about and spent a huge amount of our development time trying to balance. We wanted it to be that if you are a established fan of the genres, either of Metroidvanias or of kind of brutally difficult but very tightly designed platforming, something like Super Meat Boy, etc., would you enjoy our game? But also, if you've never played a 2D platforming game before, like you're a kid, or you've only played 3D games before because you grew up, with modern consoles, but for some reason our game appeals to you, which I hope it does, can you also get into it? So can you possibly balance a game so that it works for absolute beginners all the way up to absolute hardcore players, the kind of players that will be trying to do speedruns, the kind of players who will be playing competitively? That's, as we have discovered, that is an almost impossible task, but it can be done with smart design. But I'm not saying that Team Cherry aren't going for smart design. I am assuming from what's being said that Team Cherry are just not bothering with the absolute beginners, and they're just saying, no, this game is squarely aimed at the hardcore fans of brutally difficult but extremely rewarding Metroidvanias. And yeah, it literally says that's catnip. It uses the expression of catnip, and yeah, to me, absolutely, that is catnip, and I'm gonna love it. But they're raising a valid point there. With this game getting so much hype, a lot of people are going to jump in, maybe who haven't played the first game, maybe who've never even played a Metroidvania game before, maybe the kind of people who usually only play, say, Fortnite or Call of Duty, and they have literally tuned in to Gamescom opening night because they wanted to hear about the latest Black Ops game, but then they saw, oh my God, what's this game that everybody's talking about and the crowd is going absolutely wild for? And Jeff Keighley is saying this is the most wishlisted game on Steam. Yeah, it doesn't look like the kind of game that I would usually play, but my God, if everybody is really interested in it, maybe I should give it a try. If those people, that kind of mainstream audience who usually only plays, COD or Fortnite or FIFA or League of Legends or Minecraft or whatever, those kind of people, there's nothing wrong with any of those games, by the way. I'm not criticizing people who play this, but people who only really play any of those kind of games suddenly come to Silksong because of all the hype. Are they going to be able to adjust to it? Is it going to give them a good impression, or are they just going to put it down within 5 minutes because it's just too difficult for them? I don't know. However, what I do know is Team Cherry, Hollow Knight is an extremely well-designed game. Yes, it is hard, but it is fair, it is well-balanced, and the difficulty slowly ramps itself up. It doesn't start off being brutally difficult. So if I had to guess, I would imagine that this problem that they're all kind of semi-predicting, I would guess it's not going to be a problem. I'd guess that they have, part of the reason why this game has been so delayed is because, not because there's any, as I mentioned before, my prediction is the reason why this game will have been so delayed is not because there's been any production problems, but because they want to polish it and balance it as perfectly as possible. And I'm sure that they are very, very aware of this potential issue. So while everybody is kind of raising this potential issue, if this is something that has occurred to just me and my friend who are making a little Metroidvania by ourselves, I am sure that the experts at Team Cherry, who have made one of the best, if not the best certainly the best indie Metroidvania of all time. I was going to say the best Metroidvania of all time, but then suddenly my head kind of froze and went, but what about actual Metroid games? What about actual Castlevania games? There's something about me that won't let me say it's the best Metroidvania game, because what about Symphony of the Night? What about Super Metroid? But you know what I mean. Hollow Knight is up there. The mere fact that Hollow Knight is up there in the same conversation as those titles, yeah, they know what they're doing. Frankly, yeah, they're right to these reviews, or not, well, they're not reviews, are they? But these kind of talking points are right to point it out that maybe this might be an issue with the very small 2 15-minute demos that they've been given to very briefly try out. Sure. But when we get the full game, honestly, I don't feel like this is likely to be an issue. I feel like this is something that Team Cherry will have predicted and will know the hype. But obviously, they know the hype behind this game. So I'm sure they will have some kind of either an easy mode or a tutorial, or just the early areas of the game teach you everything you need to know. It wouldn't surprise me if they hide that behind some kind of easy mode or a separate tutorial area and allow people who've already played the first game or who are already confident to skip past that, because that might be frustrating. That was my only complaint really with Fast Fusion, a launch game for the Switch 2, one of the few exclusive games, and a game that I said is absolutely brilliant. And I put out a review and I said, for me, that was the best of the launch games, way better than, say, Mario Kart World, or way more polished than Mario Kart World, at least, maybe way more complete, and only $15. So fantastic game. But if you are like me and you have bought and played all the previous games in the Fast series, then the fact that it forces you to start in what is essentially the training mode, the easiest mode, is the only thing that I think people might complain about, because it is frustrating to expert players who've been playing every previous game in the series, and those games really threw you in at the deep end. This one is like, no, let's try and be more mainstream. Let's not throw people in at the deep end. Let's have like a beginner's mode to teach people. Yeah, okay, but that beginner's mode is very frustrating for people who already know what they're doing. So it would have been nice to be able to skip it. But again, Team Cherry, maybe I'm trusting too much in them, but I don't think so. My trust in Team Cherry is they know exactly what they're doing, and they will have already considered this issue, and they'll be dealing with it. And I'm sure they found it just as difficult to deal with as myself and my friend did, but they probably worked it out quicker than we did, because they're Team Cherry and they are literally the experts in the genre as far as the modern take goes. What other quotes do we have? Insider Gaming. The gameplay loop is back. The slick dashes, jumps, and swipes are a key part of Hornet's arsenal. Tactical jabs and prods using Hornet's agility and nimble frame to evade attacks. These are hallmarks of what made the original so special and accessible. Yes, accessible is the word. Yes. Once you learn them and master them, the moveset, the game does suddenly go from being difficult to being accessible, because it's like a skill. You learn it, but once you've learned it, it's very satisfying to use your new skills, and what previously seemed difficult now seems satisfying and fun. as I said, it's a bit like Dark Souls. If people are like, oh, Dark Souls is so difficult. It's not difficult. You just need to stick with it. You stick with it, you learn it, and suddenly what you thought was difficult is now easy and it's satisfying, you know? Okay, so that quote doesn't tell me very much more, but yeah, I could have said exactly the same thing about Hollow Knight 1. The Gamer, this is our last quote here. I saw nothing to suggest that it's reinventing the wheel, although I don't doubt that there will be more than a few abilities to differentiate things. In my humble opinion, this isn't a bad thing. Yes, I agree. I said in my earlier takes, what I want from this game is not to reinvent the wheel. I said, you know, if they did decide to completely reinvent the wheel and turn it into a roguelite or a graphic novel or a farming simulator, I would have gone along with it anyway, just to see what Team Cherry did, because Team Cherry is known for quality and I trust them and I want to support them. And if they've spent this long making it, it's obviously their passion project. It's obviously what they want to make. So even if they had massively reinvented the wheel, I would have gone along with it, but it's not what I wanted them to do. What I wanted them to do was essentially make more of the same, but just bigger and better. So yeah, I agree with this statement. It's not reinventing the wheel from the look of it, but there's probably going to be a lot of new things to make it stand out, and it's not a bad thing that they are just building on what they've done before and doing the same thing again but more. I mean, my perfect example of that would be, I mean, yeah, I said it was a perfect example and now I'm questioning myself. The perfect example in general, and bear in mind I'm not applying this to Hollow Knight, the perfect example is Sonic 1 on the Mega Drive compared to Sonic 2 on the Mega Drive. And actually this is a great example of what I said about the demo as well. Sonic 1 on the Mega Drive, Green Hill Zone literally was groundbreaking, absolutely sold everybody on that game. I mentioned this before in my Bubsy breakdown video, but when everybody played Green Hill Zone on Sonic 1 on the Mega Drive / Genesis for the first time, it was literally a revelation. It was unlike any other 2D platforming game that had come before it. It was like Sega were reinventing what the platform game could be and also showing the benefits of the 16-bit hardware versus previous 8-bit hardware. And almost after Sonic 1 came out with that Green Hill Zone, it kind of made all 16-bit platformers that were copying the 8-bit formula, it made them look old hat. So I mentioned, for example, James Pond 2, or actually, no, I didn't. This is I'm getting confused between what I said in the episode and what I wrote in a reply to a comment where I expanded upon it. But yeah, in a comment, in a reply to a comment, I expanded on my thoughts and I was like, well, look at James Pond 2. That is a 16-bit platform game that came out on the Amiga and Atari ST and was beloved and got really good reviews because it came out before Sonic. But then Sonic came out and showed, okay, this is how we can evolve a platform game into 16 bits. And suddenly James Pond 2 looked old hat because it was really just an 8-bit platformer, but with prettier graphics. So it was very well reviewed on the Amiga and the ST because on those formats it came out before Sonic. But when it came out on the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, it came out after Sonic, and suddenly it looked old-fashioned. It's the same with, say, Alfred Chicken on the Super Nintendo. It looked like an 8-bit game, but with just slightly prettier graphics. And Sonic had basically reinvented the platform game and said, no, this is what a next-generation platform game should be. And then that's what all the others were trying to copy, and that's why we were talking about Bubsy the Bobcat. Bubsy the Bobcat was one of the more successful attempts to make a Sonic clone at the time. But the problem with Sonic 1 was, just like I said in my little rant about demos above there, was in Sonic 1 they had clearly put 90% of the resources in getting the engine working, getting the physics working, and then designing Green Hill Zone to really show it off. And no other level in that game is as good as Green Hill Zone, because clearly 90% of the resources went into getting Green Hill Zone as good as possible. So, like, if you played Green Hill Zone at like in a shop, at a friend's house, or like if you were in the industry, if you played it at a trade show, if you played that as a demo, you would have been like, wow, this is going to be the greatest game ever. And then, frankly, the rest of the levels were kind of a disappointment. But Sonic 2 is the perfect example of taking the promise of Sonic 1, but then expanding on it and just going, okay, let's make a sequel which is basically the same thing but better and just improves on it in every possible way. Expanding on the ideas, taking what was there and just fleshing them out. So this is why Sonic 2 is remembered as one of the best games of all time. Sonic 1 is remembered as, well, it was an okay game, but really what it was a trailblazing technical showcase that showed the potential, but that potential wasn't fully realized until Sonic 2. So for Hollow Knight, the reason why I kind of backed it, I said, oh, this is the perfect example, but then I backtracked a little bit, is what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Hollow Knight 1 was like the game that had a lot of promise but didn't fulfill it. No, I'm not saying that at all. But it's a perfect example of what I'm hoping Silksong will be, is basically the same game again, but expanding on it and improving on it and adding a few features, slightly improving the graphics, adding a handful of more features as long as they're kind of balanced and not too much and don't overcomplicate the gameplay, and then just make the whole thing bigger and better. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I imagine Silksong is going to be, and everything that I've seen of Silksong looks like that's what it's going to be. But coincidentally, Sonic 1 is also a good example of what I was mentioning before with the whole kind of Duke Nukem Forever problem of often a game will have all the resources put into that one area, that one level, to be able to show to people and say, look how cool this is, but then the rest of the game doesn't live up to that. But Hollow Knight did not do that, and I don't think that Hollow Knight Silksong will do that either. And the fact that they have chosen to not show off a new demo, but just reuse the same demos that they've already shown to people before, is actually a very good sign that that's not what they're doing. Yeah, brilliant. So did I read the full quote? No, I didn't think I did. I saw nothing to suggest it's reinventing the wheel, although I don't doubt there will be more than a few abilities to differentiate things. In my humble opinion, this isn't a bad thing. Yes, I agree. Hollow Knight is such a unique Metroidvania that another story in that world is fine by me. Yes, I agree. That's basically what I just said. After the eternal wait, 6-7 years, we're agonizingly close to playing Team Cherry's next adventure, and it already feels like it was worth the wait. Oh, fantastic. That's a good way to end that quote. Yep, I completely agree with everything said by the gamer there. It has been a long wait. We are very close to the game coming out, but with everything that we're hearing and everything that we're seeing, it feels like it was worth the wait. Okay, great. That is a perfect time then for me to watch the trailer, the full trailer. We've already had my reaction to the teaser trailer, but I haven't watched the full trailer. I've been very patient. I downloaded it and I wanted to react to it live to get the genuine reaction for this episode. Okay, what have you got for me, Team Cherry? Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? Wow, yeah, really stepping up the particle effects, the lighting effects. Oh, so many characters on screen at the same time as well. And oh, yeah, fantastic shader there. Yeah, the way those street lights go in front of in front and behind the foreground. This music is fantastic as well. The map looks big. Wow. Oh, it's gorgeous, isn't it? The quality here. Animated cutscenes as well. A vast handcrafted world. Yes, handcrafted is an important word there. A lot of variety in these backgrounds. A lot of variety in the areas. Gorgeous use of colour. 200 different enemy types. Wow, okay. And over 40 bosses. Jeez. Yeah, these particle effects are next level. Wow. That's cool, right on. Yeah, so it looks like we're going to have animated cutscenes as well. Fantastic. Wow. What a trailer. And then the slow reveal of the release date, September the 4th. That is so soon. It feels bizarre, doesn't it? It feels utterly bizarre to have been waiting for such a long time and then just finally, oh, okay. And now we know the date. And it's, what is that, like 2 weeks away? It's, God, 2-3 weeks? That's crazy. Yeah, sold. I certainly didn't see anything there that I didn't like, and I saw a lot there that I did like. I think we've got that Bloomberg article, which Jason Schreier interviewed Team Cherry, and I really, really want to go into that in a lot of detail, break it all down. And I know a lot of you listening won't have had a chance to read that article because it's behind a paywall, and I'm very lucky to be in the industry, so I have access to it. So I will. I'm going to read that and go over all of that as well. So I'm looking at the time. It looks like I think it's going to be best to split this into 2 parts. But I will literally, as the second that this is uploading, I will go right into part 2 as well. So yeah, so sorry to split it into 2 parts, but if I do it this way, then I can get this first part out quicker. And hopefully by the time that most of you are watching it, part 2 will also be available. But if it's not, subscribe and it will be the day after. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, if you want to find other ways to listen to this, like Spotify, etc., if you want to support the show in any way, thank you very much if you do. Or if you want to join our free members area where you can enter free competitions to win official Nintendo prizes, linktree/dailyswitch2, linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thank you very much, and I will see you all right back in part 2. I cannot wait to go over this and deep dive on the Bloomberg article because I really want to hear what Team Cherry have to say for themselves.